If you want to learn more ways to become a professional independent operator, subscribe to this channel. If you want to support what we do, like, share, and turn on that notification.
Welcome to Making Your Miles Count Production, an educational program to all Canadian lease owner-operators with your host, Robert Scaper.
Welcome to Making Your Miles Count podcast, and today we're going to be talking about Trump in Canada. And first of all, I'll start off right at the beginning here. It's Trump personality styles in Canada. Trump isn't moving into Canada, so I don't want to be clickbait. The title of it is a little misleading, but intriguing. But realistically, bottom line, we all deal with Trump-type personalities all the time. I've read a few books on Trump, actually, long before he got into politics. I read a couple of his books, The Art of the Deal and Art of Survival. Couldn't find The Art of the Deal in my library somewhere, but anyway, must have borrowed it out. I've read a lot of different business books, biographies, a lot of stuff. And I don't know how many you've read. Quite a few too, eh? I don't know. You read magazines and articles and stuff?
My wife does.
Your wife does. But Trump is a great example of a certain type of leader and business owner. We see, especially in the trucking industry, a lot of people like Trump because Trump gets things done. He was in the construction industry. You got a lot of experience in construction, and so you appreciate a lot of how he did things and stuff like this. In trucking, we don't get things done. We move freight. The guys who can really move freight, chances are sometimes they are Trump-type people, really dominant people person, moving, getting things done kind of a thing. And we deal with those kind of things all the time. One thing that's unfortunate with what Donald Trump has done to the media is we now have, what do you call that? Safe spaces in university, and you can't wear MAGA hats or anything like that, which is ridiculous because if you want to be successful in business, you got to deal not daily, but almost every day with Trump-type personalities. Sometimes we go to a dock and business, the shipper or receiver, they could be just as much a Trumpian type of a person.
Bowling, thick-skinned sometimes.
Yeah. We have to develop methods to live with these types of people. Statistically, they only represent approximately 3% of the population, so there's not very many of them. Thank goodness, But
they turn the world.
They turn the world.
They turn the world.
You know who's another person who is like Trump? They're probably the closest. Winston Churchill. I'm a huge Winston Churchill fan. Read a lot of his biographies. I got those big brown things. They're actually Winston Churchill writings. Probably. Of all the books that I have, by far, they are the most valuable ones that I have. Like, I think they were $600 or $800 for the set.
But Dave Ramsey is very much the same as Donald Trump.
Oh, totally, yes.
Very much.
Oh,
there's no
exactly.
excuses.
Yeah.
I listen to his program on radio, and we've talked about this before. With some people, he'll be very gentle, and the next call he gets, he's like a junkyard dog. He'll just jump all over that guy, and then you go, whoa, where'd this come from? But yeah, he's very much like that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. There's one good line that he said. He says, "I have ideas all the time," and I says, and then he says, and if the idea is bad, that's okay. Just wait around. I'll give you another idea. All ideas. Winston Churchill was like that. He's been attributed to actually inventing the tank because he was involved in politics, and they had to break up a union something or other, and they had guns, and so he said, "Hey, take this big sheet of steel in front of you and walk through in order to do it." And then he said, "Hey, you know what? If you could walk it, you should motorize it, and that's his brainchild to say, hey, for World War One, this we should do something. So he's a brilliant guy, but he also he was incredibly full of himself, like unbelievable. Like he burnt every cotton pick and bridge in British politics before World War II. He was conservative. He started out with. And then he burnt a lot of bridge, and then he seen everybody going liberal, so then he flipped over to the liberal side, and he burnt a whole bunch of bridges there, and seen everything move back to conservative. So he moves to conservative, and nobody trusted him. Nobody trusted him. And but some of the ideas that he had, the one that he went down in history, the worst for was Gallipoli. He sent. During World War I, right at the beginning, he sent a whole bunch of ships through this place, and he was going to attack near Turkey at a particular place, and come in around behind and into Germany, and to break the trench warfare. In theory, it was a decent plan, but they had to run a whole bunch of ships through a place, and they had to take fire, and everything had to do with speed, and they had to get to a place at a certain time, and then they had to take the high ground, and once they got the high ground, then everything would be good. The only problem was he didn't time it out right. It's sort of like saying, okay, you're going from Winnipeg, or from Toronto to Winnipeg, and you got 24 hours to do it. If you get 24 hours and 5 minutes, that's it. It can't be done. Can you do it in 24 hours? Yes. If everything goes just right.
22 and a half.
You can do 12. Okay.
Fastest time.
Fastest time. But let's say it's 20. Let's say it's 23 hours. Or something. Yeah. He did it way too thin. They were approximately 15 to 18 hours too late to get the high ground, and it was just a massacre. Thousands and thousands of people got killed in there, and all of the people in Britain, so many people were affected. They all hated him because of a thing. He never admitted defeat. Like, he never said that the plan was bad. He blamed it on this guy didn't go fast enough. This guy. He never took responsibility for it. And you see that with guys like Trump too. He's got a plan. He's got to do. It wasn't enacted properly or whatever. He blames somebody else.
And then fires the guy.
Yes. Exactly. Like, that is a personality style that we all have to deal with. Do you have anybody in your family like that?
Oh, half of them. That's why I don't get together with them.
They are
bulldogs.
People. Yeah. Like, I was a kid, like 8, 9 years of age, and almost all of my extended family, I don't think any of them had a 9-to-5 job. They were all entrepreneurs and self-employed business people. And so everyone was in each other's face, One guy's super dominant, influencing guy, took over everything almost a lot of times or whatever. Being exposed to that at a very young age, I got used to it, and I'm okay. So if a dominant, influencing person comes, like, I don't back down and whatever. I'm okay with that. But there are some people who have a terrible time with that.
You have to learn to laugh at him.
You have to laugh at him, or just put them on, and say, okay, that's crazy, Uncle.
That's just him. That's
Uncle.
just him. That's just,
and then and sort of back off. But what they're teaching kids in the university now is unbelievably counterproductive to being successful in life. Like, you can't have safe spaces. Who in the world is having safe spaces at work? You got to get something done, A to B.
Maybe in government there are safe spaces. Maybe there are certain places.
That's probably the only place some people can be hired and work. They have no marketable qualities whatsoever in the real world. So, just work for the government then. Because, that's a good point.
But not in the trucking industry.
Certainly not in the truck. Probably a disproportionate amount of dominant people who own trucking companies, and because you have to wrestle and fight and all sorts of things for freight, because the vast majority of all freight, if a carrier grows, the vast majority, if not all of the freight sometimes, is you're just stealing it from other carriers.
Mm-hmm.
And realistically, you have to be pretty bold in order to do that. If we look at our lives, I think you're probably one of the boldest people. You're very bold in how you come across, and you take that as a compliment. There's some people who wouldn't and say, "Oh no," but realistically, you have to be bold and confident in business. It's a wonderful trait. It can get you really a lot in business. Now, you can't be blindly bold and confident.
Yeah, that's arrogance.
Yeah, that's you're not going anywhere there. But
you can be confident and present your ideas in a way that the people that you meet with also then have confidence in you, right?
Yeah.
It's not
You have
only
to sell yourself.
You're selling yourself, and you win people's support, right?
Yeah.
And so now there are some people that try to do that by being aggressive, by being, very domineering, and get things done that way. And then there's other people that you actually want to work with them.
Yeah.
The two different methods trying to get things done, right? And I think you had alluded to that in our earlier conversation, that there's some people you'd like to work for,
right,
that get things done.
Yep.
And they are not, the person that yells and screams and uses every, expletive. Yeah. And then those are the kind of people that you actually gravitate to with your personality style. Mm-hmm. Now, there's other guys that are not that kind at all. They're the ones that yell and scream, and maybe it's the people that also yell and scream that like to work for those people because they know how they think, right? They know where they stand with them, and so maybe both can get things done. And
there's a place for both of them, I guess.
I guess.
That reminds me of the story when my wife and I were driving truck. I was very naive, and I'm not a big. I don't swear a lot, like not out loud. Sometimes in my head. We went to a place, a receiver, and I went into the office there, and it was, first of all, it's blue as smoke, and they were making, I don't know, these springs or whatever, and it was very, I love manufacturing, and I'm looking around and stuff like this, and the shipper was there, and another truck driver was there, and these guys, this one shipper was unbelievably, his profanity that came out towards the driver. And I go, oh boy. And they're like I'm next in line, whatever. Yeah. And this driver just blasted it right back. And some of the stuff and accusations, your mother, this, your sister, like and I'm very naive, like they're very young, and I'm going back and forth. And then I took a little bit closer look, and these guys had a smirk on their face, both of them. And they were both enjoying it. And I'm going, what in the world? This is not the society that I grew up in. I was very sheltered, probably, naive, whatever. These guys were enjoying themselves. And I never saw that before. And I thought, there are people out there that have no problem with people swearing at them, and yelling and swearing at them. And they're okay with it. Now, that's pretty thick skin.
They got to be the same personality.
Same personality, yeah. They are very comfortable with swearing and yelling and putting people down. But I think men can do that sometimes.
They don't take it personal?
Yeah, like we play poker and we make fun of each other, and we can do that because we're men, okay? But if there would be guys and girls both together, generally speaking, we would never put somebody of the opposite sex down. Yeah. Like that would be yeah, I wouldn't even think of it. But guys, we can laugh and joke and tell each other stupid. That's okay. But there are some people who just do that naturally, and it's like ridiculous. I was talking to a client a while back, and he was telling me how his boss swears at him and yells at him and all sorts of stuff. And I said, if it's just overwhelming like that, you can probably find another company if you really look. And he says, no. He says, that guy moves freight. He valued the moving of the freight more, and he would just accept that. Yeah. Well, but so he is getting wealthier because he'll put up with that, but that's business. Like, I mean, if we exclude everybody that ticks us off, we wouldn't have any customers.
Right.
That's not true. So that's what I have a big problem with universities teaching that stuff. That I don't know what they call it, safe spaces or woke.
Yeah, I was just gonna say woke.
Yeah, it is unbelievably, like, if you want to fail in business and in life, then absorb that. There's some universities. If I get a resume and there's a university on there, I just go straight into the garbage. Don't even look at it. The only thing that I might look at is, okay, well, he spent 3 years at McDonald's or Wendy's or something like that. Okay, there's some productivity and stuff, and some commitment in there that can offset some of the university. But if he goes from high school straight into university and no, there's too much crap that comes out. It's not worth it to me to take any kind of risk on there.
Well, everything nowadays is based on feelings.
Oh, yeah.
Like hurting my feelings. You hurt my feelings. Well, my dad said that to me the other day. I confronted him on an issue, and I was just I've never done that, but I just had it, and I confronted him on an issue, and then later he comes when we were going to leave. He says, "You hurt my feelings, but what you said." I said, "Deal with it." I said, "It's about time somebody gets in your face because you've been getting in everybody else's face."
Yeah.
And
Do you remember that saying when you were a kid, sticks and stones
yeah.
may break my bones, but words will never.
That's the opposite.
Nowadays, it's,
That's when we grew up.
Yeah.
Sure.
In elementary school,
we were taught that.
that's what we were taught.
Yeah.
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 Right.
We were.
That it doesn't matter what
We
somebody
had to
says.
accommodate.
You have to accommodate. You know what? People will have their opinions, but you don't have to take it personally. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That's not anymore.
No.
That's
no.
not the common mindset.
Very little
And-
thick skin.
Yeah.
Very little.
And
If we deal with Trump or Trump-like people or whatever, we gotta learn to filter out some of the natural
Yep.
stuff. Okay, that's ridiculous. I'm never gonna listen to you. When he says, "I have the best this and it's the
Yeah.
best," it's okay. Yeah,
I've
he's a
done
salesman.
this and I've done that.
Yeah.
And there's
Okay,
nobody
all right,
can do it
get to
better
the
than
real
me,
point.
And it's like, yeah.
And that's the way we have to all do that.
Yeah.
Because there's some people who are salespeople. I mean, if we believe a salesperson, everything that they say, oh my goodness, we'd be all broke. Like, we have to be able to filter out the BS.
Yeah.
And you don't have to throw the guy out.
No.
You say, okay, well, he exaggerates by 30%. So if I take out 30%, hey, I think I'm getting a good deal for that, or something like that. But yet, like, Trump was phenomenal in construction, and some of the stories that he has, like when he took over the project for that ice rink in New York or whatever, the government tried for 10 years and it was way over $10 million and unbelievably upside down on it. He took it over, and a couple $1 million and 6 or 12 months later, and it was up and rolling. That's a great PR move. First of all, it was a great PR move, and it's a little bit it's exaggerated because there's nobody less efficient than a government. And if you get provincial, federal, and municipal all together in one, you never get anything done. Like, it's just like whatever. And so it's the same thing in the States there too. Like, you got everybody get their finger in the pie or whatever. It'll absolutely get nothing done.
So do you think Elon Musk versus
versus, that's a good question.
Versus Donald Trump?
Elon has a mind of an engineer, and he figures things out. Like, he has a very much of a numbers guy, and very logical.
But he's also dominant, and he's also
very
very
opinionated.
high demanding, very demanding. person.
Yeah,
Like,
I just finished reading his book.
Yeah.
He'll get to like SpaceX or whatever, and you get there at 4 a.m, and he looks around, and how come there's nobody here?
Yeah.
And he calls the guy, and they just finished doing like a 42-hour binge of working or whatever, and they only had 4 hours of sleep, and so he brings them all back again. The expectations is ridiculous.
Super high.
Is super.
He's also autistic, isn't he?
A little bit, yes. He's a little bit on the spectrum, and you can tell it because some of his jokes are a little. What? It wasn't
But
very
there are
well.
some similarities between the two characters.
Yeah. the
But-
driving nature.
They don't come across the same way,
No.
but they're both highly productive in their field.
Yeah.
Like extreme.
Extreme
And-
success.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very, very much.
There's also you can have you can have two people with the same personality, like that driving force.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
One is very polished, and the other one is not.
Mm-hmm.
There's an in control and out of control in all the personalities, but we see it more in the D type personalities because they're such a driver. They don't care what you think.
Yeah.
But you can have the same guy that has learned how to work it
Yeah.
in a more of a relaxed way,
Mm-hmm.
but still just as strong. That's where we were talking before with confidence. You can have great confidence,
Mm-hmm.
very courageous
Mm-hmm.
and very confident, knowing in who you are.
Mm-hmm.
I have found more and more in the last number of years how people are attracted to people that are confident
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
because they know where they're going, and people see that. They'll look at you and say, I want to follow that guy.
Mhm.
That guy's going places.
Yeah. Everybody
And-
wants to follow somebody.
Even though he's not looking for a following, you automatically have a following.
Yeah.
I noticed it in my company. We've only been there a year, and already they know who we are,
Mhm.
what we can do, and if it's in a pinch, they know who to call.
Yeah.
And I like that. Sometimes it's not fun being in there.
Yeah.
They have a whole lot of faith in you
Yeah.
and trust in you. Like, for example, we had I was down and came out of South Carolina by myself. Kathy stayed home, and I was in Minneapolis. I got there early, about 6:30 in the evening. I could go in 4 in the morning. I was like, great, this will get me home early. Well, another driver woke me up at midnight. He pulled in beside me and whatever, woke me up. And just as I woke up, an email came through. I forgot to put my phone on silence, and I saw my dispatcher had called and texted twice,
Mm.
and I didn't hear it. And so I checked, and so make a long story short, one of our drivers had his appendix burst in Minnesota.
Ah.
So he says, can you and Kathy leave first thing in the morning and get this load down to, it was 100 miles before the Florida line. This was on Saturday morning. Can you get it there for Monday morning? Otherwise, they're going to refuse the load
Yeah.
because somebody made a big mistake.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm still in Clearwater,
Yeah.
Minnesota. I'm 8 hours from home.
Yeah.
And he said, can you guys get it there? And so whatever, I quickly ran the numbers and I said,
We can do
I
it.
think we can do it. He said,
Yeah.
I know you can do it.
Yeah.
I got home at 10:30 in the morning. We left at 11:30.
Yeah.
And at 10:30 our time, we were in
I mean,
100 miles before Florida.
okay.
I dropped my trailer at home.
Yes.
We bobtailed down to get his trailer
Yeah.
and ran down. And we were there Sunday night.
Yeah.
Wow.
We ran basically nonstop,
Yeah.
but
When did you fuel up?
on the fly.
On the fly.
Yeah.
We had an aircraft from the
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, it's things like that. Like they can trust you,
Yeah.
and they know you can do it. So, and I noticed that a lot, like people that are confident in themselves,
Mm-hmm.
they have a following.
They have a following, yeah, absolutely. And there's nothing. Before he got into politics, Trump had an unbelievable a following of people because they hung their hat on him. Like he could negotiate better deals with the construction people in New York because he said, "Listen, I'll keep you busy. I've kept you busy for 20 years. I'll keep you busy for another 10 easily, but you have to get this rate. I can't afford that rate," kind of a thing. And there's this camaraderie. Like he didn't go in there and he says absolutely not and bash it, and he negotiated. He's a great negotiator. Like in your face, and it's totally different in politics because people aren't used to that kind of confrontation. It's so very, very, very soft. But I liked what I learned by reading the two books. First of all, I don't know how I love reading books about business people, and obviously he didn't write the book.
No.
Like, I don't think he had the patience to
No,
sit
no,
down and
no.
actually. They would sit down with a tape recorder, and he would just start talking, and that's how the book comes across. No, the second book, the first book was actually much better. It flowed because the author of the first book was very good at piecing it all together and stuff like this. The second one, it was sort of like, okay, we got 45 stories here, and bang, 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 and that's right. But there's a lot more stories and a lot more interesting. But it comes across much more in your face Trump and honest in the second book than in the first one. The first one was it was easier to read. But believe it or not, I the only story I really remember, I think it was the what do you call it, that ice rink story from the first one. But there's way more stories in the second one that I remember. He not just tells great stories, but he has points to his stories that is very, very personal, very intimate. He is way more transparent than any other politician or business person. He can't hide anything for any reason whatsoever. He told the story of Harry Helmsley in, I believe, his second book. Harry Helmsley, that's Harry and Leona Helmsley. They were multi-billionaires. They built office buildings in New York as well. They were all together, and Trump and Helmsley were good friends. Helmsley bought a building in New York and wanted to tear it down and put up another big complex. And some society for building preservation said, no, this is a historic building. Helmsley fought the society for 5 years so that he could tear it down. In the end, when it got to the final judgment, the court said, no, this is a historical site. You can't tear it down. Well, this guy's invested hundreds of millions of dollars into
years.
this, and now he has to take something and totally change the direction that he was going in. And so he had to get a new architect, a new designer, everything right from scratch again. And and Trump tells the story of how Helmsley went to that society that fought him for 5 years, hired them to design it. And he says, think about it. He said, you fought these people, cost you millions of dollars, and you hire your enemy to do the work on this new construction. He said he admired Helmsley for doing that. And then one quote, he says, I would like to think that I someday would be able to do that. That is transparent. And he
shows also some humility.
Humility. Yeah. That he couldn't do that right now, but he would like to do it, and he knew that was the right thing to do. I thought that was a great reflection. There was another, The Art of Survival. He was walking down the street in New York with somebody complaining that he was upside down and he was not making any money. He was just trying to survive. And he went to a bum on the street. He touched the guy or whatever, and he says, this guy right here is worth $200 million more than I am. And he writes this in his book. Unbelievably honest about his situation, and that.
What's interesting is when you see Trump on the news or you hear him do speeches and so forth, that's not what you see.
No.
But there are very short snippets in his life where it's like he comes to a realization that where he actually sees himself in a mirror and so, okay, maybe or not maybe, I am not all that I present myself on 99% of the time when I'm talking to other people. That confidence, right? Where there is maybe a little bit where he recognizes.
I think he also assumes people can see through his BS.
Yes. And yeah, maybe that's true.
Yeah.
There's a
Because he sometimes talks, I'm the best.
He's, well,
And he
almost
kind of
every,
chuckles
almost
a little, you know?
every speech, in politics,
Yeah.
he talks like there's nobody that can do it as good as him,
Yeah.
right? And nobody's ever done it as good as him.
And he kind of chuckles,
and he-
too.
yeah.
And I think deep down, he knows that there's probably other people who could do it better than he is, but this is his job, and this is what
His shtick.
what
This
his
is
thing. He's doing it today,
Yeah.
And
This is how he. And you're actually right. Maybe his assumption is that people can read through him, and that's part of his charm,
yeah,
right?
yeah. I think that's a good point, but
But I think that's the part of him that people get so angry at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because for those people who don't recognize that,
who don't want to like him for political reasons.
Yes.
Say, I don't know, maybe.
But he's in your face.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're right. There's people that you work with, whether it's, dispatchers like you were alluding to earlier,
Company owners.
Company owners. You have to approach them maybe on the same basis as what when you watch a guy like Trump on the news or doing a speech. Maybe you can learn from how to respond to him. Learn how to respond to these people that you're working with.
Mm-hmm.
We put a filter on.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's lots of filters that we have that we say, okay, in the presence of this guy, I put this filter on because I'll believe every third word. It's not.
Third story. Yeah.
They're entertaining, very entertaining, but boy, I tell you, the BS that they go through is just, you get tired after a while.
Yeah. I had to deal with that for years. With a dispatcher. He just never knew where he was going to be at, and he was never kind. And the one day I went in and he was the same way again, and I didn't say a word to him. When I grabbed the doorknob to go out, it's like a voice said to me, he doesn't want to be your friend. And you know what? That hit me. I just paused for a moment.
He doesn't want to.
He doesn't want to be your friend.
Yeah.
He's doing a job. Okay,
Yeah.
this is his job. He doesn't want to be your friend. He doesn't have time to talk or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
He just doesn't want to be your friend.
Yeah.
And so for the next month, every time we came in, I was in the office 3-4 times a week.
Yeah.
I would go in, get my paperwork, and leave. And after about 4 weeks maybe, I did the same thing. Came in, went back out, and then he hollered at me. He said, "Hey, Peter." I said, "Yo." He said, "How you doing?" I said, "Good." I opened the door to walk out. He said, "Well, hold on a minute." So I took a couple of steps back where I could see him, and he said, "How are you?" He said, "I haven't talked to you for a long time." I said, "I'm doing good." And I walked out.
Oh.
That changed our relationship.
Yeah.
That totally changed our relationship.
Yeah.
It was for years. After that, it was, that's the way it was.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk to you necessarily because I'm interrupting what you're doing. He's concentrating on whatever. And
I guess your perception right at the beginning was you're a very personal person. You'll talk to anybody.
Correct.
And just be a personal one-on-one friend.
Yep.
You know, that's what you want. But a dispatcher,
you expect when you are that way with someone, they will reciprocate.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
That's not always the case.
No.
and it can't be sometimes.
Yeah.
You know, like a dispatcher can't be your friend.
Yeah.
Like the company owner can't be a friend to all the employees.
Yeah.
No.
Because his responsibilities are, hey, I'm terribly sorry, but I may have to fire you. And that, but we all have like these filters in our minds that we say, okay, wait a minute, okay, that guy is acting that way because of that, and we can still respect a person and say, okay, he's going in that direction. We'll use him, or we don't use him, or something like that. But the learning of just these things that we're just talking about, that's what young people have to learn.
I think everybody should go through that DISC program, the DISC.
Oh yeah,
Personality profiles. Well, there's the other one with the dogs and
but there's actually lots of them. Yeah.
We used to take people through it. My brother had the book, so we ordered the videos and we watched the videos. I don't know how many times. Then we started taking people friends through the program. You immediately found out who the D's were because they couldn't sit through the first one, never mind the second one.
Yes.
So we had one couple that we had down. We were the quarter way in because the D is first, right?
Yeah.
And she was just furious. I mean, furious. Like, we're just watching it. Nobody's saying nothing.
Yes.
But she took it all personal.
Oh, yeah.
That they were attacking her. We talked for half an hour to try to
They
get
calm
her
her
to
down.
change her mind.
Yeah.
No, she wouldn't have nothing of it.
Yes.
But I think, like for us, going through the program, it has just set us free on personalities.
You know when it
How to, like, you could even if you're not a D, you can be an S, with the sensitive one. You can raise your D.
And you can learn how to work with a D.
Work with a D. That's a big
Yep.
thing. I know. I'm a big fan of discs as well. Like, I have the program. Actually, at the master's level, I became certified to interpret disc profile, and we actually, I don't know if this is legal or not, but we took the disc tests and we automated, put it into a computer. So now, for the last, I don't know, 5 or 6 years, or actually longer than that, every time we hire somebody new, or they have to take the disc test, and then we talk about personality styles.
That's perfect.
It's lots, and everything is it's all automated, and it comes up on a screen, and all your
As an employer, it's wonderful to get an understanding, because now you know what motivates that person.
Correct.
Yeah.
You know what's going
Or where to place them.
Yeah, how to deal with them so that they will enjoy their job and perform well. Because if you would deal that with all of your employees as if they were all S's, right? Or if you deal with them like they're all D's, you're going to have a lot of...
You have to have understanding of different
and
personalities.
this is a very good way of...
Absolutely, yeah.
Understanding personality types is a very good
and
way.
hiring, you made a very good point there. You hire based on sometimes the personality. For instance,
And then you train the rest.
our Heather, our reception's been here for however many, couple decades, not over a decade, whatever. And she is a high person. Just like people, because people come through the door, on the phone, all the time, dealing with people. Like, at the end of the day, sometimes she's exhausted, but people is her thing, you know. If you would put her in a workstation doing debits and credits,
never work.
Where you can sit in a corner and not talk to anybody for 4, 6, 8 hours or whatever.
Yep.
Yeah, we would.
She'd go squirrely.
She'd go squirrely, nutsy cuckoo. And yet we have other people who are really high C's, you know, CS's, and they get into the corner and they just shine like crazy. That's and they don't speak to anybody for 6 hours, kind of thing. It's heaven to them, you know. So it's heaven to one and heaven. So if we're hiring for a workstation, we got to make sure that their C and S is high, and if we're hiring for something with more it has to have the I above. It's a little bit job placement, and sometimes it's a little bit. How do you train somebody? You know, because to train an ID or a DI is very, very different than a CS. Like a CS is, you need all the details and systematic and all. Whereas the DI is, well, just where's the bottom line? I want to see the bottom line. Just keep on going. And I wonder who's be really good. I think you can have like a dominant influencing as a good dispatcher, but you could also have a good CS, or like a compliant, stable individual as a good dispatcher too. But I mean, either way, sometimes it's the market where you determine too.
My daughter's a very high D, and when she was young, we had so much trouble with that kid. Every night it's a fight to get her to bed. And when we stumbled on this DISC program, they teach you how to deal with a D, okay? A D-type personality, they want to be in control of a certain part of their life, or in an area of your company even. And so when we learned that, the very night that we learned that, I said to my daughter, I said, honey, I want you to go to sleep by 9 o'clock, lights out. You decide when you go to bed, but I want lights out at 9 o'clock. And all of a sudden, I says to my wife, where'd Brittany go? Well, she went to bed. That's not possible. I went and looked, and she was sound asleep. What happened? We now gave her the authority to
Make
decide,
choices.
make
Yeah.
the choice. And so after that, we started making her, she was in charge of certain part of the house. Chores.
Was she the oldest?
Meals. No, she's the youngest.
Oh, she's the youngest. Okay.
Yeah, but the oldest is a boy and the youngest is a girl.
Okay.
But they're both, Brad has got my personality, maybe more of a D than I am, but with Britt, it changed her life. It absolutely changed her life.
Yeah.
She was
So
so
birth
easy.
order has something to do with personality types too.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we had both D's. The boy's a D and the girl's a D.
Yeah.
But Brad's a DI and where Brittany's a D.
just a D. That's it.
Just dominant.
No, see, but
Yeah.
for me, learning that my wife had a lot more trouble with Brittany than with Brad because Brad is an introvert, Brittany is an extrovert.
Yeah.
Okay, that changes things too.
Yes.
So some people are more in your face
Yeah.
than others, and it could be the same personality.
Yeah.
But for me, I could deal with Britt better because I knew what she was thinking.
Yeah. The vast majority of all of our stress in life actually comes from personalities
Clashes.
clashes.
Yes, sir.
And we just and that is the probably, I mean, we're all 60, 61 and isn't what's that?
Careful.
Careful. Isn't that the hardest and the best thing to learn though?
Well, here's the deal with this disc program. At least the way Robert Morris, I think it's Morris, explains it. He has numbers, a sheet of paper with numbers on it. Okay, it's all full of numbers, and then he gives them 1 minute, 60 seconds to circle numbers in consecutive order: 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever. The highest one got 13. Then he said, okay, now take that same piece of paper, draw a line down the center from top to bottom, and the center from left to right. And he said, now look, 1 is in the left quadrant, 2, 3, 4. Now circle in consecutive order the numbers. And most of them got close to 30. He said, what happened? He said, you saw the pattern. He said, you're floundering everywhere with your kids, with your mates, you don't know where they're at. But he said, if you can find the pattern, the personality,
That's a great illustration.
You can figure out what that person would drive for a vehicle, house they would live in, clothes they would wear, how they would respond to people, how they are with other people in business and in whatever. And
Relationships.
like we got to know that disc program so good. Now, if I meet a customer, I immediately know what personality they are. So then you know how you can talk to them.
Yeah.
Either raise your D or
And
raise
you
your
can
S,
reduce the level of stress
Absolutely.
that is that can naturally occur.
Well, we had a customer that we had to go to, and exactly this customer where we had to run so hard to get that load down there. Dispatch said, hey, when you get there, just go easy, be careful. He said, this guy is just be careful. And I said, Sheldon. He said, I know, but I had to say it. And so when we got there, I just said hi to him, and he started talking, and I could right away pick up his personality and what mood he was in. And so everything went perfectly smooth. Perfectly. It immediately got neutralized. Yeah. And so later on the day, dispatch called in and said, hey, how did it go with the customer? I said, perfect. I said, I don't know what you were talking about. He said, I had another driver go to that same customer a week ago, and he got his head chewed off.
Yeah.
And I said, it was fine.
Yeah.
But if you can learn how to work with people, read people, it doesn't matter where you are in business, in family,
And filter
in
out
church.
some of the stuff that could be naturally offensive to people. You got to filter it out.
Correct.
Just get out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It neutralizes everything when you can learn what kind of that, especially personality things.
That would solve, I think, trucking companies a lot of headaches.
Oh,
Just
everybody,
if everybody would just learn to
Now, is
accommodate.
this learning to be unoffendable?
It helps
That's
with
a
that.
good question.
It definitely helps with that.
So that there's nothing you can do that can offend me.
Yeah.
Right. Our pastor always said that.
Yes.
Be unoffendable.
Be
Yeah.
unoffendable.
Grow
But-
thick skin.
Yeah.
But what I have
Is
learned,
that, is
Am
that,
I undefendable?
Yeah.
I think in everyone, my wife can easily offend me.
I'm not unoffendable.
You're-
But I have learned over the last 5 years, I had an incident that happened to me where I really saw my mistake. I now, especially when I meet a new person, I don't let my guard down until I feel safe. Once I feel safe, then I start to lower it. But I have been attacked so fast that it just cuts so deep, and especially by somebody that you admire or appreciate, or you know, that goes even deeper.
Yeah.
And so I've learned how to put up my guard and then lower it.
Now, I'm going back to this unoffendable thing. If you go with the mindset when you meet somebody that no matter what this person does, I will not take offense.
Correct.
Right? I am not going to take offense, no matter what he says, no matter how he yells or screams, or
Yep.
right. When before you open the door and walk into that office, to that dispatcher, kind of like going back to your story when you approached a guy a certain way, and you didn't know why he wasn't reciprocating, and so you decided, no, I'm just going to walk in, get my paperwork, and go out. Right? You decided you were not going to take offense.
Correct.
Yeah.
No matter what he did.
Mm-hmm.
If you can deal with every person that you come encounter with, and it's harder with the people closest to you.
Correct.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But if you can approach people that there's nothing that they can do that I will take offense to, right? And you have to approach it from the basis is, you know what? I don't know what's going on in that guy's life.
Yeah.
He might be responding because he just heard that his dad died, or that his sister got cancer, or he just had a run-in with his wife and things are not looking good in his marriage, right? And if you approach people that there's a reason why they are responding the way they are, and I'm not going to take offense to it.
Right.
Your life can be a whole lot easier and less stressful.
But if you get to know a person that is always like that, that's a little different.
Yeah, that's there are some people that they have no real justification for being
they're
jerks.
just mean.
No, no. But even those people, you can say, I am not going to be.
Exactly.
I am not going to be offended by them.
No.
Yeah.
No.
It is a choice, but man, that's a tough choice.
Well, it's a very high standard to live by, right? Because it's basically what you're saying is, I have no right. I give up my right to be offended.
Yeah.
And that's very hard to have, because we all feel that we deserve certain things. We deserve to be treated a certain way.
Yeah.
Right? We deserve to be respected.
Yeah.
Right? And so it's a very high standard to live by. But there is some wonderful things that come if you can achieve it, or if you can aspire to be like that. I think the anxiety and the stress that a person goes under can actually be greatly reduced.
Right. Yeah. I've actually I've gone to a customer, and this is the approach I got, like just in my face.
Yeah.
I'll just wait, listen, hear him out, whatever, and then the next time he comes around, let's say he's unloading my trailer, so the next time he comes around, say, hey, is there something in your life that's like, is there something that you can share with me? Is there something going on in your life? And you know what? I've had people literally say, tell me stuff, and you can talk to them, encourage them, and the whole defense thing comes down.
Well, I think approaching it where you, it makes me think of, I was trying to park in a mall parking lot kind of a thing, and I've got a full-size truck, so I was pulling in, and these stalls are not really made for full-size trucks, right? And so I'm trying to make sure that I'm even on both sides, so there's equal, and I'm parking straight, and it's hard to, in a full-size truck, it's hard to, so I'm actually going back and forth. All of a sudden I hear this bang on the back of my truck, and I'm, what? There's nobody. And here I look in the mirror, and there's a guy standing, and he banged the side of my truck, and
with his hand.
With his hand.
Oh yeah.
Right. And so I lower my window, and he gives me a
blows you out.
Of efforts, and while I was trying to make sure that I gave him equal room to the person beside.
Yeah.
And he's telling me where I should be, taking my truck and where everything else. And so I pulled out, I backed all the way out so that he could get into his vehicle, and he could have his door fully open, and then and close, get in, and then I pulled in so that he could pull out. And I, by the way, I never said anything. I didn't say a word, right? I was thinking afterwards, I wonder how he felt leaving.
Yeah.
How did he, when he drove away, did he feel that he had put me in my place? Or maybe did he feel that he... Maybe he.
It could go either way. There's some people who have zero conscience that way.
Yeah, exactly.
I am the world revolves around me kind of a thing.
But what I wanted to do is, for myself, I was going to choose not to be offended by this guy.
Correct.
Yeah.
I was not. I knew in my heart my motivation. I was trying to
do the right thing.
I was not trying to be a jerk and just I'm in a hurry. Deal with it. I was my intentions were to park as nicely as I could in this limited space that I had.
That's personality conflicts. That's huge. I like the concept of Trump being in people's faces, because it confronts people, so they have to, sometimes they have to deal with that conflict. Well, how are they going to do it? They don't agree with the person. Well, realistically, I can't remember which podcast we were, but somebody said, I think it was you, who said we should never agree with anybody more than 95%. If we agree 100% with somebody, we're this close.
I don't think it's that high. I don't think we should agree
even that much.
Yeah.
I think if we find that we agree with somebody 100%, that's a cult. That is very close to being a cult. It will lead you to, because you're putting your brain aside somewhere. You're not thinking about something somewhere. We have to disagree with everybody.
And also, it's very important to do that with a D-type personality, because they will begin to control you.
Oh, yeah.
They, as soon as they know that you're eating out of their hand, they will control you. Yeah. And once they got control of you, it's hard to get out of that.
Yeah. You know that, and Trump said a couple of things, like he says, if I shoot somebody down the street, I'd still have a huge following of people.
Yes. Yeah.
Because they would say, oh, he can do anything he wants. That's wrong. Yeah. That's a little cultish, in there. But realistically, if there's a cult behind Donald Trump, there's definitely a cult behind Justin Trudeau. Or any bunch of other people, any politician to some degree. If you have to lay aside your brains, that's a cult. That you got to back off for that. But I don't know. Independence is, we have to learn to think. My goodness sakes,
critical thinking. Right?
Critical thinking. One of the things that I read his first two books, and then once he got into politics, I thought, man, all I know is just Trump's side of the story. So I got a couple of books that they're biographies, unauthorized biographies, and I started reading through some of the stuff. And I thought, look, give me good, solid evidence that maybe he is a crook, because that was definitely out there that he was a crook. And some of the logical stuff, arguments that was presented in the book or books, had almost no understanding of, for instance, the real estate industry.
So they maybe weren't logical.
They were just totally unlogical, and they were biased.
Yes.
And and the guy sells a million books or however many books or whatever, but the argument is horrible. It's like,
But for those people who were looking for a book that validated their perspective of Trump, they loved that book.
They love the book. Look,
See,
somebody
see,
really wrote it down and said, here is the evidence.
We know that
no, there's no evidence whatsoever.
Yeah.
One of the arguments that in the book was he buys a bunch of buildings and he gets revenue from it, but he depreciates those buildings and he offsets the income with the depreciation, and he never pays taxes on his income. Well, that's the entire rental industry, for goodness sakes. I mean, that's most of your portfolio is you're depreciating your assets from the rental
by the way, it's not that you will never pay tax, because once you sell that building and now you've got an appreciated value,
then you pay tax. Then you pay tax. Yeah, it's all just deferred.
It's deferring tax.
The argument the guy is saying is you're deferring it, but you're taking it out of the taxpayer's pocket.
No.
Well, that's like buying a $100,000 truck, but you can't depreciate that thing until you actually sell it.
Yeah.
Well, goodness sakes, they just talk about collapsing an entire economy.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Because in 5 years, that $100,000 truck is worth $20,000. What if you have to hold on to it for 20 years? Like, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, I would have paid a lot of income tax on my truck.
Oh, you just, totally.
A couple of years, and then 22.
Sure.
Wow.
Yeah. Like they had no business sense whatsoever. And some of the things that I learned about Trump was actually kind of funny. He owned some golf courses. And in order to lower his taxes in the county, he converted it to farmland rather than golf or industrial or whatever it would be. And he lowered his property taxes $80,000 by converting it into farmland. And in order to convert it, he had to have an X amount of animal or livestock on there. So he had a fence or whatever on the 9th green or whatever it is, and they had a whole bunch of goats in there. And those goats and that's all they were there. And people would, they'd be golfing by these goats or whatever. And that saved him $80,000 a year. And the guy says, well, that's theft.
No, he was working within the rules. The rules stated.
Okay, here's the thing. If you owned, maybe you're totally anti-tax, but if you owned a golf course, would you put goats in there?
I mean, my concern would be for the goats. They would get hit by the ball, the golf balls.
We got 3 dead goats this year.
Yes, I don't know if that would be such a wise move to have goats on the fairway.
But it's a little bit hilarious. It's extreme. Like, I would view it. He's not a tax evader, but he's a tax avoider for sure.
Yeah.
Would I, if I had the luxury of owning a golf course, would I cheapen it by putting goats in there and having people driving their golf course and he's, why do they have goats over there? And the cheapskate or something like that. It may taint the perspective of the golf course, prestige or something like that. That's. I would think that way, but Trump didn't think that. He did. He did it for $80,000. And you know what? From a tax perspective, there's people who will risk different things in there, and people are comfortable. Like, I don't like taxes. That's my whole thing. I don't like taxes. Would I do that? I think I would question the marketability of the business. What effect that would have on it to just lower taxes for the sake of lowering taxes. I think there's too much of a public perception that I would have to weigh on there. But I mean, there's other things too, and it's a little bit what he's going through now. Some of the court cases that he does, like he bought a bunch of, I can't remember whether it's in Chicago or whether it was in Minneapolis. He bought a bunch of buildings, and he petitioned to have the assessment of those buildings from a tax perspective lowered considerably. and he was successful at that. Then he turned around and then he evaluated those buildings higher from a borrowing perspective, and the author said that's lying on two fronts. Everybody who owns property in Canada, they would love to have their assessment lower, but their market value as high as possible. It is a natural real estate tension, and you can't get away from that. Like, everybody does that.
Well, it's like I was mentioning to you earlier. If you got your $500,000 house, when you're paying taxes on this $500,000 house, your argument to the taxman would be, if there's 100 houses out here, well, look at these 3 are paying way less than I am.
Yeah.
So I want to pay based on these comparables.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right? Now, when you go to the bank and you want to try to use the equity that you have in your house and try to buy something else, you want to maximize. Now you're going to go to the bank and say, well, look at these 5 houses. This is what my house is really worth. It's worth way more.
So you're telling two stories.
You're telling 2 stories because they're both, and they're both. Are they both true? Depends who you're telling it to.
It depends who you're telling it to, and sometimes depends on a person's sensitivity to lying or misleading. Do you know, I had an extremely unusual situation about 3 or 4 years ago. We used the non-taxable benefit per diem and saved $12,000 a year in taxes. And so somebody was doing it at a different firm, and they came over and they started saving, $12,000 a year. And the guy just loved it. Okay, the husband really loved it. After a couple of years, the wife eventually convinced the husband to move to a different accountant because in her heart, they were not paying enough in taxes. She was really sensitive. She was used to emotionally paying a certain amount. Now suddenly they had to pay
And she wasn't
20% of it or something like that.
And she felt they weren't paying their fair share.
They weren't paying for their fair share. That I would consider to be a hypersensitive conscience. And you get all sorts of people. Some people would say, no, you say if your house is worth $500,000 to the assessor, your house is worth $500,000 to the banker.
Yeah.
And I don't think you're lying either way.
But on your
go up and down.
But on your assessment with the property tax, they always assess your house lower than what it's actually worth, right?
Not all the time. Sometimes, and a little bit depends on the municipality and the cycles that they go through. Sometimes they just flat out do the market rate.
Ours is lower. Ours is assessed much lower.
And then don't tell anyone.
No. And it wasn't telling.
Maybe you should call the assessor and say, you know what, you assess my house too low. You should really increase because I want to pay my fair share.
No, I do already. I do already.
It's a tough industry. But for the author of that book to just lambaste that Trump steals from the taxpayer. That is very disingenuous to the actual industry, to the actual how the economy even works. You know, he has natural reactions that are even more bizarre. But he took over some casino in Atlanta or whatever, and one of the big things in casinos is bringing in whales. You know, the guys who spend millions and millions of dollars gambling. And so he did everything he could to bring in one particular whale. And that whale was notorious for playing one game. What is that Japanese baccarat, or I don't know, it's some gambling game or whatever that has a very, very specific trends to it. And so Trump hired a professional numbers guy to come in and said, okay, if we're going to bring this guy in, how long do we have him? And what is our goal here? Because where are we vulnerable? And this is, if you can have the guy here longer than, I can't remember longer than 12 hours, you're going to start winning no matter what. Because that's just how the numbers work. Mm-hmm. And so okay. So he gets the guy in. I don't know what the story is, how he got him in, but he started getting it. And so the guy was he was playing the game, and at 6 hours, Trump was down $1 or $2 million, mm-hmm. and Trump was mm-hmm. And he was pacing around, and 8 or 9 he was down $2 or $3 million, and then he calls it, and so he's about at the 8 or 9 hour mark, and he calls in this expert again. What are you doing? We're losing. What are you? And he was panicking because of this. And the guy says, listen, it is prior to 12 hours or however long it was, these are the numbers you're going to be exposed to if you keep him there longer than 12 hours. And the guy had to talk to him 2 or 3 times. Meanwhile, Trump had stayed up almost all night worrying. Every 15 minutes he'd get, where is he at? Where is he at? Where is he at? And he worried all the way through. He got past the 12, and then it flipped, and Trump started making money. Mm-hmm. But he worried like a stinker, mm-hmm. because he put his faith in another guy. And in this math guy who was right, mm-hmm. and this guy said what an idiot Trump was for worrying, and what kind of a boss is he, and stuff like this, and mm-hmm. and what's he saying to his organization, what's he doing, and put him down and stuff. Oh my goodness sakes! It's just so illogical. The arguments that this that he was some sort of tyrannical ruler because he was worried about his numbers. It was a great story, but as business owners, we all worry about our money. Well, what happens if this? What happens if some people vocalize it much more, and Trump just vocalized everything that he felt. Mm-hmm. And
he still does.
He still does. He can't hide it. That's one thing. He brought in the numbers guy, and he was just lambasting, telling him how stupid he was, stupid. And to the mathematician's credit, he says, we're not at the 12 hour or mm-hmm. whatever that number was mm-hmm. at that point yet, arguing back and forth. And in the end, Trump and this mathematician, they got along well, and everything was fine. But you had to have super thick skin to work with Trump. In the process, like that mathematician had to know, he had to be confident and to know what he was doing. And in the end, like some people, like Trump, like they can't hide anything. As a politician, the biggest thing is everybody hides something. Like they just. Sometimes you watch a politician. There was a local run here. I can't remember whether it was federal or provincial or city or something like this, and I knew the guy who was running against him, and they would go to the same places, and same meetings, and they would go to one thing, and the guy would say one thing to one group and another thing totally different to another totally, and the guy that I know, he would say his opinion at the same, and he was consistent all the way around. The other guy lied like a rug, and he says it was horrible, and yet the guy who lied won, because for the most part everybody didn't catch on that he was lying. Mm-hmm. But nowadays with video cameras and Facebook and all the internet stuff, social media, you can't lie like that anymore. Mm-hmm. That's not getting. And realistically, they'll tape Trump saying something. Nothing surprises me with Trump anymore. I feel more comfortable with him than any other politician, even though some of the things that he says, I flat out disagree with. Like, he was the one who fast-tracks the vaccination, and he instigated that, and to me, like he started a ball rolling that should never have rolled. But anyway, that's my opinion. But anyway, it's an interesting thing in business that I think mirrors. We learn how to deal with people in families, and we learn how to get along no matter what. And in business, it just extends it, and we just keep right on learning. And I think we're all now 60, 61. For the most part, we've learned it.
Still learning.
Still learning, yeah, but not in the volume like we used to. Like I was way more sensitive, even like 25 years ago. I was way more sensitive. Somebody says something, and I'd panic and then wait around. Oh, okay, and work through it. Now somebody says, okay, well, let's see what happens.
Yeah,
Yeah. That comes with age, maybe.
Some of it does, yeah. Some of it does, yeah. I've learned that too already. As when you're confronted with something, take a few steps back.
Yeah.
Look at it from a little farther away, and you'll come up with a different answer than to shoot your mouth off. Yeah. I've learned to just walk away. Don't respond or retaliate. Yeah. Just walk away, analyze the whole thing, and then approach it again if you have to.
Yeah.
And then approach it that you can. There's no. I've always been told the person that gets mad first loses the fight.
Yeah. In the end, absolutely. Yeah. Like, divorces are a little bit like that too. When, like, I've worked through some of our clients through divorce, the one that's the most antagonistic and that fights the most, you watch them 5-10 years later. They're the ones at the bottom, and they're having the most amount of difficulty. The one who was more humble and was able to discipline themselves to work through the situation. They are the ones. It's almost identical to the flip over. If one looks like they're really the boss at the beginning, but in the end, it's the other one that has a much better.
The one that took more offense.
Yeah, the one that took more offense was down on the bottom.
Yes, that's why I'm talking about living an undefendable.
Yeah, exactly.
If you can do that, you will rise to the surface.
Oh yeah,
you will rise.
Yeah. I like that.
Unoffendable.
Unoffendable. To be unoffendable,
that's on purpose.
Mm-hmm. You have to
choice all day long.
Think that, and it's got to be a habit, and
I used to get so mad when people would flip me off, and it was just about on a regular basis. You're in the wrong lane, or you're driving the wrong speed, or whatever. You made the turn too wide, and somebody had to wait 5 seconds or whatever, and then they'd flip you off and honk the horn. No, just
they gave me one figure. I'll give you 5.
Yeah, just
have a nice day. Have a nice day.
Man, that would change society an awful lot.
But you know what? I was coming through Minneapolis one day, driving in the middle lane, minding my own business. I'm driving a little bit slower than traffic, which I like to do, and people were just cutting me off. This guy from this way, that guy from that way, and I was just getting furious already. And all of a sudden, my wife says, "You can't change their behavior or their style of driving. You can only change your response to it."
Yeah.
And I thought,
is your wife a philosopher?
I slowed down even
Sounds
more.
really good.
And you know what? Let him go.
Yeah.
Let him go. You can't change stupid people.
Yes.
Whatever. But unoffendable.
Yeah.
Man, that's a daily thing, an all day thing.
Oh yeah. It helps being married to learn that, because then you got to deal with it much more soul. I think it's the personal people that your interaction with, like the closer you are. You made a point before. The closer a person is, the higher the level of potential offense. Yeah. That is. My wife would say, "Well, then just don't get personal to anybody."
That's inevitable.
That's yeah. You gotta be gotta go in that direction. Just undefendable.
Unoffendable.
Ah, come on! I can't even say the word.
Unoffendable.
Unoffendable.
There you go. You got
I
it.
get it.
But even the 5 love languages with Gary Chapman, that's we've gone through that so many times, and even especially with a married couple, like people say, "How in the world can you drive with your wife every trip?"
Mm-hmm.
It's been 19 years,
Yeah.
But when you figure things out, personality things, love languages, if she is willing to meet your love language and you hers, there's never a fight. Yeah, there's maybe disagreements on things, but whatever. You just let it
They're
go.
minor.
They're minor. They're not major. Like if we fought in the truck, oh my goodness. No, that we did the first year. Man, my wife was ready to jump out of the truck at 55 mile an hour. But you learn, and it's, you know what, it's a self-discipline.
Yeah.
You discipline yourself. You can't change the next person. You can only change yourself.
Yeah, and that's a great to invest in yourself to overcome stuff.
Absolutely,
that
it's
is
huge.
great ROI on that.
Huge
That is
dividends.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
So, Trump is all through Canada, all through our families, everything.
The personality.
Yeah, the personality.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. All right. Well, this has been a great podcast. I like this one very much. It's very personal. Very hopefully people think this through. I know it. I know for myself. I'm gonna focus on it, mull on it quite a bit for sure. All right. Well, that being said, have yourself a great trip.
Thanks for stopping by Making Your Miles Count. For further Making Your Miles Count productions, call us at 877-987-9787 or download us at makingyourmilescount.com.